Hi, everyone. Welcome to DBT, the intro to in this residential aid training series. Glad to have you guys. Let me jump right on over to some slides so we can get started. We're going to take about 15 minutes today to look through these slides to get the basics. First off, DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. And we're going to jump into why we're using it at the nest to start off with. Dialectical behavior therapy is obviously a style of therapy, and it was created to help people who have behavior that is driven by intense emotions, emotional swings that consist of highs and lows and can go back and forth not only within a week, but within a day. When behaviors are fueled by these really strong emotions, it generally leads to problems. I would imagine if you've been at one of the nest homes for any length of time, you can think of many behaviors that you've observed that were driven by emotion and made the life of that individual more difficult. Some examples. I'm thinking quitting a job because you didn't want to go in that day. Um, Not showing up for house meeting because you were angry at the residential coordinator. Getting into a really aggressive verbal disagreement with someone because in that moment you were convinced that they took something out of your room. Generally, after such behaviors, people are able to look back and say, that made the situation worse. Now, sometimes that happens 10 minutes later, an hour later. Sometimes that happens weeks, months, or years later. People have varying degrees of ability to look back on their life and say, that actually made the situation harder for me. So our goal is that we can make people's lives easier by making their behavioral reactions and responses to the world more effective, would be the DBT term. Basically, something that's going to work for them, make their life better. In dialectical behavior therapy, we really try to balance validating where the person is and pushing them towards making changes in their life to make their life better. Validating where the client is or where the resident is a really important piece to this puzzle. And it's going to be a primary focus for you as a residential aide. When I say validating, I am referring to simply finding the sense, finding the logic in someone's behavioral response, in someone's perspective, in someone's emotions. So it's based on the situation you described, I can see how you would be angry. Given everything that you've experienced in your life, I could see how that would have made you really scared. We are not validating unhelpful or extreme behaviors. We are validating the emotional response. And a good rule of thumb I like to always go by is emotions are valid. Even if it's not based in facts, emotions are valid. Many behaviors that go along with the emotions are not necessarily valid. And that's a different story. That's where we would push towards change. And that's something that I would work on with someone in the therapy session. The therapy consists of two main aspects. It's the therapy session and the skills classes or DBT groups. Skills groups are a time for the participants to learn. It is not what someone might think of when you picture a therapy group, as many people have seen in movies and shows. This is a educational class, which is why RAs are often encouraged or invited to join in. We're not going to be sharing deep, dark secrets. We are going to be talking about the specific skills that we're covering that week and how you can apply them in your life. Are there any regular circumstances or regular reactions or behaviors that you have where you could apply this skill and it might make your life easier? It's very short on sharing, big on learning. The biosocial theory is another cornerstone in dialectical behavior therapy. Others talk about a similar theory that is called nature versus nurture. The biosocial theory says that it's nature and nurture. The bio part being that some people are born more sensitive to emotional stimuli. This means that if there were 10 children infants in the room, and all of them were getting their diapers changed at the same time, which can be uncomfortable and distressing for an infant because it's cold, and it's just something new. It's something different. About 2 out of the 10 are going to have emotional reactions that are more intense and that last longer. Those 2 out of the 10 will likely be less receptive to being comforted. They still need that comforting. They're just going to take a longer time to calm down. And then there's going to be infants at the other end of the spectrum as well. So what does this mean for adults? This means that for those born with this emotional sensitivity, emotions seem to come out of nowhere. They seem to hit out of the blue. They last very long and they feel extremely intense. This pinprick example that you see here on the slide is that if you could imagine, I was able to emotionally pinprick your finger. I come along one day and I emotionally pinprick someone's finger that is in this 20%. Their reaction is going to be huge. They might scream, they might cry, they might have just intense feelings of pain, anger, resentment, isolation even. And those intense feelings, they're so strong, they're going to stay around for a while. And the next day when they see me, they're going to be like, hey, Christina, I still can't get over that you did that to me. I'm still mad about this. Or they might not say that, but still feel really mad about this. Whereas if I came along and gave that emotional pinprick to those outside of the emotional sensitivity, for those that are in the 80% of the population that are born with just a lowered emotional response, they're going to get that pinprick and they're going to say, why did you do that to me? That was not nice and it hurt. Please don't do that ever again. Now, do you want to go on with our day? Because we had plans and let's talk about what we're going to do. And they would feel hurt. They would be slightly annoyed or angry. And then those feelings would come back down again. The social part of the biosocial theory is that for those born with this emotional sensitivity, they either learn how to regulate themselves because of the family that they were born into. They learn how to handle the emotional ups and downs. Or on the flip side, their family or the home that they grew up in does not support them in learning how to regulate their emotions. And therefore, their emotional sensitivity can become more and more out of control or dysregulated. At the very least, they would just never learn how to control it. And it would stay at this point of living a rather uncomfortable life where the what you would think of as the day-to-day aches and pains of living are extremely intolerable. We at the Nest are tasked with helping people that may or may not have been born with this emotional sensitivity learn how to regulate their emotions. We're never sending the message that their emotions are wrong, are weird, are not valid. We always want to send the message that, as I was saying before with validation, based on everything you've been through, based on the current circumstances, we can see the logic in this emotion. That might not necessarily mean we're supporting your reaction, your response, but we want to help people into this emotional regulation through giving them what they have never had before. And that's people that are going to be there for them despite having emotional swings of ups and downs. The old example of, has anyone ever calmed down when they're angry and you told them to calm down? Telling someone to calm down is rarely effective. And so telling someone to stop being sad is rarely effective, to stop being frustrated. Why is this important for residential aides? Residential aides are the front line of the Nest. You are the best teachers for our residents because you're here. You're spending a lot of time with the residents. Therefore, you have a lot of opportunity to impart knowledge and wisdom through the formal teaching of this is how you do things. This might be a good way of handling this. And also by the example that you set. You are going to come across stressful situations when residents are around, and they will see how you handle things. So learning the DBT skills yourself, which is something that we will do in the coming videos, is going to be a really important piece of this puzzle. You having the same vocabulary and knowing that the residents and you can be on the same page in talking about the strategies that you're using to deal with the stress of A, B, C, and D that comes along with a home of this nature is going to further promote the use of these skills in their life. The best way of teaching is showing by example. And that's what we want for you. That's what I want for you. We know that there is a lot to learn with DBT, and there's a lot of skills to learn. So what I'm asking of you is that you try to take in everything that you can, process through it, and try to apply it in your work on a regular basis. Even if it's just conceptually, knowing, okay, I saw that so-and-so just turned and walked away, and that was probably really invalidating, which got him really angry. Conceptually, you're using DBT, even if there's no action that you're putting to it right then and there. You are taking what you're learning, you're processing through it, and you're applying it to what you see and what you do in the workplace. And in order to do any of that, you really are going to need to know your own strengths, your own areas that you need to work on. We all have wonderful, really strong areas of our life. We all have areas that are not as strong, that we need to improve upon. DBT, I'm hoping, is going to be a tool for you to say, I never thought about it that way. Maybe my life could be easier if I applied that, and take that and run with it. And go ahead and I want you to use these DBT skills in your own life, in your personal life, and in your work with the residents. It is not for people that are down and out. These skills can help everyone because we all have areas of our life that we need to improve, aspects of our being that would be better if it would be easier for us if we put some time and effort into using skills. So, with all of that being said, thank you for joining me for DBT 101. The next video is soon to come. Bye.